Their defense back off the field. Happy feet taking another look. Landstrom deep, he's got it. Wants that throw back. Not a shadow of a doubt.
Welcome to another edition of the Summer Showcase. Let's talk ELF and CFL for you. A little bit of CFL for you today as well. Let's start off with heading into the week. Obviously, the QB carousel has always played a role in everything that we do. And when it comes to football, it's very common amongst a lot of leagues to have a lot of revolving doors. Today, it was announced that the Prague Lions have released quarterback Shazon Mumphrey. Mumphrey's been the starter since week one. The Lions have not had any success. Offensively, they have struggled most of the season. Mumphrey's had had ups and downs. He has shown flashes, but for the most part, he's been pretty inconsistent. But it has led to his release as of today. But they wasted no time. They went out and brought in American import, former University of Nevada Wolfpack quarterback Nate Cox to kind of take the helms of this team and move forward with it to try to salvage whatever little bit of the season that they can. Prague is an expansion team, and being an expansion team such as that, it's going to be hard to find your footing in the first year. We all know that for the most part. A lot of expansion teams, I talked a lot about it in week one. A lot of expansion teams generally, struggle as they try to work out a lot of the chemistry issues that some of the, teams that have been around for a little while and kind of build that over time with returning players. So with that being said, we wish as Mumphrey here, at the Shady Sports Network and me personally here, the best in the future. And, Nate Cox, I'm excited to see because primarily Nate Cox is a guy that kind of, he came in as a freshman when Carson Strong was at Nevada, took over the realms, had a fairly solid year out in the Mountain West Conference with Nevada. Didn't quite duplicate the success that Carson Strong had. Strong arm, big body, with some mobility. So he might be able to hopefully balance his team out. Depends on how quick he catches up on the system and whatnot. So it will be interesting to see what happens this week. They are supposed to play the Leipzig Kings, as we know about what we've discussed previously or the last show, and some of the big news around the ELF. It sounds like the Leipzig Kings are folding up shop. Some players have taken to social media and talked about they've quit. We have not heard an official word as far as the game is concerned this week. I'm under the assumption that it's probably not going to take place, but we have not heard whether or not it's going to. So I don't know the status of what's going to happen there. And if it does, then Nate should be able to come in and at least have a opportunity and chance to lead Prague to their first victory. No offense to Leipzig, but with everything kind of up in the air right now and nobody really knows what's happening, I can't imagine that they're going to be in the best space possible to put up a W. The Helvetic Guards have finally signed a quarterback. They went into last week. I don't know if it's just because they played, if it's because they played rain. They decided not to sign a quarterback last week after, the Jordan Barlow situation. That's not them. I apologize. Yeah, no, it is Jordan Barlow. I apologize. After the Jordan Barlow situation happened, they had not signed a quarterback. They have now signed Sky Noble, who, from what little I know about him, let's put it this way. There's some character issues surrounding some social media posts involving Sky Noble. And the only thing I can say is I'm not going to comment too much about that, but the only thing I'm going to say is hopefully with the world of social media nowadays, athletes and really pretty much almost anybody but primarily athletes or anybody that's in the spotlight has to be careful with what they say, what they do, and how they do it. Um, and for Sky Noble, hopefully he can take what happened as a lesson and it can do better. Let's just put it that way. It'll be interesting to see if the guards are able to kind of rally around him coming in, because they have had little to no success. And this is, I believe, now their fourth quarterback we're heading into 6 weeks, the week 6. So 4 quarterbacks in 6 weeks, where regardless if you're an expansion team or not, is not going to be a good indicator of success on any level. Doesn't matter where you are. And last week when they played rain, not bringing in a quarterback, I guess their game plan was just to run it down, try to run it down Rain's throat. They were -1 yards passing at halftime. That is never going to be a key to success, doing that at all. So hopefully, fingers crossed for the sense of the guards trying to get back on track here for Helvetic and their fans. But Sky Noble is going to be the one that is tapped to try to take on the success here moving into week 6. Another quarterback carousel here. The Enthroners, after 2 straight weeks of running with Matei Hegedus, the national quarterback, and having mixed results, but for the most part, no real success in the win column. They have gone out and signed former University of Arizona Wildcat quarterback Kevin Doyle Jr. And Doyle Jr. has been around in Europe for a little bit now. He's got some experience, so hopefully he can come in and kind of take this Fiervars team and turn it on its head. I would like to say here that Kevin Doyle Jr. will be my guest next week here on the Summer Showcase. He will be joining me for a interview and discussion about the ELF, what his time has been. But tune in next week if you're interested to find out about the Enthroners' newest quarterback, and maybe we'll talk about the possibility of a W for that team. It's going to be an uphill battle for them, but they are playing Berlin in Berlin, so there's a good chance that they may, maybe they could play upset and pull up the upset victory over there in Berlin this week behind Kevin Doyle Jr. as well. Matei Hegedus will go back to being, the veteran backup national QB, I imagine. And good luck to anybody with the Enthroners. And honestly, Prague and Helvetic, none of them have a win. So good luck to them as far as the future is concerned for those franchises. I do want to point out one thing, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about this when it comes to the spring football reports, which returns next week for the season finale. The Stuttgart Surge, undefeated by the way, playing great defense, probably most likely the defensive team, the best defensive team in the league right now. The last 2 weeks they have held opponents under 10 points total. They held the Raiders Trial to 3. And then last week they held Munich, the Munich Ravens, to 9 points in their victory last week. But they have signed wide receiver Darnell Stewart Jr. And I find this interesting because he last played for, here in the United States, the USFL New Jersey Generals. So Stewart is getting an opportunity to get 2 paychecks from 2 different leagues because he was on the roster for all 10 games with the Generals for the USFL season, and here he is now joining a little bit later in the season with Stuttgart. And he has a chance to get on a team that's winning and hopefully carve out a role there. So I find this interesting because one of the things that we've talked about here at Shady Sports Network primarily, whether it's me, Sam, me, or Krish, is a lot of these teams or a lot of these guys that have seasons that end fairly early in the league or fairly early in the season and then move on from there. Like, your XFL season into your USFL season, the IFL season still going. And here we have another player. There's been several so far that are playing in other leagues as they continue to either try to get back to the NFL or they're just trying to build a brand name for themselves here. So I'm excited to see Darnell Stewart this week with Stuttgart. He may not have a big role right away, but by week 2, I suspect that we'll see him on the field pretty primarily for them. Maybe all the time. He's got starter talent. He has the ability and the chance to be a starter. So maybe Stuttgart is like, you know what? Let's boost our receiving room and try to keep up with the likes of the Vienna Vikings and the likes of Rain. Both those teams and player and teams have been offensively, insane. So maybe that's what they're trying to do. Is they're just going to be like, we're going to bring in Stewart. He has experience. He's in game shape. Let's bring him on and hope that we're able to offensively keep up with some of the top teams in the league, even though we are one of the top teams in the league. And then obviously Leipzig is an issue. Again, there's been no official statement as far as we're concerned, but we were hearing about reports of players being asked to return their equipment after the game last week. Some really bitter taste in some people's mouths. Sounds like the city has kind of had some rough have kind of had some rough what's the word, I guess some bad feelings about what's happened, has not been very happy um, with the way things have gone down. It's unfortunate for the Kings. It's unfortunate for the players. I feel for the players more than anything because you sign with a team hoping that you're going to be able to get a full season out of it. You're going to be able to do whatever it is you can for that type of situation. And here they are, not even halfway through the season, and now they are having to find homes again. There's a lot of guys trying to find teams to play for the rest of the year. I'm hoping some of these teams in the ELF can extend and reach out. I know there's some specific bylaws inside the league is concerned that limits certain players from certain areas to be able to be on a team if you have a max limit. But it's just a unfortunate situation. The whole thing, it sounds like it goes back to previous ownership. I don't know much about the newer ownership, but everything that we've been hearing, it sounds like it's been a snowball effect and kind of a nightmare for the newer ownership when it comes to the previous ownership. No official word again yet from the league or from Leipzig as far as the game is concerned this week, but I would be shocked to see if this game actually took place. It was supposed to be another home game for Leipzig. I know that they said that they were going to try to exhaust all options that they could to salvage what they could for the 2023 season, but it doesn't sound like anything has been promising from here at this point. So, with that being said, all the players, stay up, stay strong, keep grinding, keep doing your thing. Hopefully, you get picked up here, whether it's by the CFL or the ELF, or you guys can even look indoor for the remainder, a little bit of the last few, weeks of the season here, whether it's the IFL or another indoor league. But just keep grinding, and things will break your way eventually, because that's how I always believe in you know in positive energy and positive vibes. So, with that being said, we are going to take a quick look at the upcoming schedule here. And I wanted to point out that Prague, obviously the Prague and Leipzig game is one to keep an eye on, because I for one would like to see it take place, just because I just don't like when teams have to fold. But right now, the primary game on the schedule, or my game of the week this week, is actually the last kickoff, or one of the last kickoffs, and it's the Vienna Vikings, the defending ELF champions, the Vienna Vikings, taking on the Raiders Trial, uh, who, despite the loss to Stuttgart, has been a juggernaut on offense and one of the best teams in the league. Actually, when I was on the press conference with Vienna a week ago, they mentioned the Raiders by name a couple times as far as some of their competition that they were going to have to at least try to win and beat and try to get by in order to, in their eyes, get to the EFL championship game and try to win this title again. So it's high praise from Vienna. They absolutely respect everything that the Raiders are doing. So I'm curious to watch how this game plays out because when the Raiders trial and Stuttgart played, I expected fireworks. I expected an offensive, um, you know, just explosiveness on offense. I think I predicted a high score of like 48-46 or something. It was crazy. Like that's what I was predicting. And the game ended up being 6-3. It was the lowest scoring game in ELF history, and it's kind of set the precedence of Stuttgart's defense being the top defense in the league, really, to be able to slow a team down like that. But the Raiders' defense able to keep up with that as well, because Stuttgart's offense was not able to kind of duplicate the success that they've had for throughout the year. And again, we're talking Stuttgart and Raiders amongst the top teams in the league. They both look like they're playoff teams. So now here comes Vienna. The Raiders kind of got back on track last week. They played an expansion team that's kind of on the ropes. But here comes Vienna, who's outscored opponents, guys. Let me put it this way. I put it a little bit in my preview for my preview and predictions too. I put this in there. Vienna has outscored their opponents 157-47 in the last 3 weeks since the 28-23 win over Berlin. They have gone on and outscored their opponents by 110 points. This Vienna team is for real. They are playing like every week is the ELF championship game, and they want that title. They're gonna bring it back. That's how they're playing, and I fear for almost any team that comes within their path. Now, with that being said, the league is separated. You have kind of a couple of these middle ground teams, but for the most part, your top teams are your top teams. There's 3 undefeated teams left in the league with the Rainfire, the Vienna Vikings, and the Stuttgart Surge, and then there's a handful that have 1 loss. 2 of the teams that have 1 loss are the Panthers Warclaw and the Raiders Trial. So you have teams that are at the top that are kind of like, we're here. This is what we're going to do. We're going to try to get in, and we're going to try to make something happen as far as the playoffs and make some noise. And you're seeing, for the most part, these top teams being able to be competitive with one another. And this game is probably, if not the game of the season at this point, is probably the most important game of this season for both these teams to try to set themselves up. The Raiders want to prove that they can win, and Vienna is a good measuring stick for that. The other game that I'm curious, there's 2 other games on this that I'm curious. Well, actually, there's 3 that are kind of really intriguing. But the other one that intrigues me the most is the Panthers Warclaw and Hamburg Sea Devils game. This is a rematch from week 1 when the Panthers Warclaw came out and surprised the hell out of me and a lot of other people with the connection of them. It was really the swan song for the Matthew Vitelli and Tony Tate connection. They came out, they won the game 34-27 or something like that, 26. And they really showed up that we're here offensively and we can ball and hang. And Hamburg the following week, played the Rainfire tough. So it is not the Rainfire. I keep doing that. God, there I go again. I keep doing that. It was Berlin who played Rain. I don't remember who week 2 was for them. Sorry, guys. My apologies. All over the place with that. I keep mixing those up for some reason. But anyways, back to what I was saying. So Hamburg looked like they were one of the best teams that were like on the cusp of being there. And here they are now getting a chance to take down a team that they hung tough with in week 1 with the Panthers Warclaw. And Warclaw is 4-1. So it's not like that this isn't a possible playoff implications matchup. Hamburg is 2-3, but if they can get to 3-3, they're going to put themselves up in really good shape. And then the game that I'm calling a trap game, both these teams were part of a trap game last week, and that was the Stuttgart Surge. They're at home as they take on the Paris Musketeers. The Paris Musketeers completed their upset last week. They completed their upset. They beat Hamburg in a game that I predicted would be a trap game, close game. Stuttgart, on the other hand, held Munich to 9 points and proved that defense is legit and for real, and it doesn't matter if they're going through a quarterback transition or not. The reason that this game is so important or so intriguing to me is because this is another one of those possible trap games, but it's hard to call it a trap game because you know how good Stuttgart's defense is. The Surge could easily sack Zach Edwards 14 times in this game alone. Edwards is still the league leader in being sacked, but the offensive line has improved over the last few weeks. Paris has slowly but steadily gotten better. We'll see what happens with that. Now that's the ELF part of tonight's show. I promised you guys I'd bring in the CFL a little bit. The CFL is something that I love. The games are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, usually Monday sometimes. Tonight there is a game, and it features. I talked a little bit about the Edmonton Elks last week. The Edmonton Elks, they travel to Saskatchewan to take on the Rough Riders. Jarrett Doege, or sorry, Dagey. Doege. It somehow is Dagey. I don't get it. Don't ask me. I'm not a pronunciation master, as evident by anybody who's watched the show more than once. But Jarrett Dagey will probably most likely get the start for Edmonton, but Trey Ford is finally going to be active. He was active last week, didn't see really any action as Taylor Cornelius came in. The thing with the Elks put up 31 points last week. The game was pretty well in hand with Toronto pretty early. Toronto ended up putting up 43. But the thing that was intriguing about Edmonton is the success that both quarterbacks had with completions. I believe Daggy only had 4 incompletions and Taylor Cornelius only had 2. The only difference was Taylor Cornelius averaged 7 yards per catch or per reception, per completion, and Daggy had like 14 yards per completion. Obviously, Taylor Cornelius is not going to get it done at 7, so I would suspect that Daggy's going to start. The game probably started about 12 minutes ago. I'm not sure what the score is at this point in time. If any of the viewers, if there's anybody watching that happens to have that game and want to provide an update for me, that'd be cool too, until I can get a chance to watch it. But I think that this game is going to be very telling because is it going to be Edmonton with 31 output last week? Does this mean that they're on the upswing offensively? But that defense is definitely an issue. They gave up 43 to Toronto. Toronto's no pushover, but they gave up 43 to Toronto, and the defense has been really, really struggling for most of the year. So Saskatchewan has a chance to kind of get a leg up here and put it to Edmonton like most other teams have as well. The Friday game is the Calgary Stampeders against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I always love when these two play. Calgary's young. They're very, very young. So this team has got to kind of rally a little bit. You try to lean on the veterans that are there. Jake Mayer, kind of had a rough week 1, kind of came back in week 2. Winnipeg's defense has been absolutely god awful. Last week was the first time that we saw a Winnipeg defense that actually looked like a Winnipeg defense that I'm accustomed to, that I'm sure that most people are accustomed to. Prior to that, though, Trevor Harris of Montreal threw for 405 yards in week 2 on them. He had a total of like 600 yards after 3 weeks. 405 of that came in one game against Winnipeg. Willie Jefferson's been basically obsolete. He's been gone. We haven't seen him at all. He's one of the best premier pass rushers in the CFL, if not CFL history. And he's been pretty much non-existent so far up there in Winnipeg. So they have the defensive issues that they need to figure out. If they can figure that out, I think this Winnipeg team could make another late run for it. Because they're always a team that's going to be there. They're veterans. They have a lot of returning players, and they have some kind of stability for the most part for that team. Calgary's going to look to play upset here. It's early. It's a long season. These two will definitely play, more often. But Calgary needs to kind of take this game as one of the most important early season matchups because they need to find out where they are measuring stick wise with a team who may not be where they want to be at this particular point in time, but potentially could be. So look for that game to have fireworks in it. Offensive struggles for Ottawa. Sam, I know you cover Ottawa, and I apologize. And some not kind things here for the Red Blacks. They take on Hamilton, though. And right now, Hamilton is my number 8 in the power rankings. So it's not like it's, this game it needs to be a factor needs to be a determining factor for Ottawa as to where they want to go from here. Jeremiah Masoli's back. Big news, huge news. Jeremiah Masoli's healthy. He's back. I joke with Sam a lot about Masoli kind of being a a walking cast, but the last injury really wasn't his fault. So hopefully Masoli can stay healthy. If Masoli can stay healthy, then Ottawa can hopefully kind of turn a little bit of some of these offensive woes they've had back. But Tyree Adams tearing his ACL finished the game with an ACL tear. I remember the play when it happened. He got up kind of gimpy, and I was like, "Uh-oh!" But he ended up staying in, so I thought it was good. ACL tear, he's out for the year. Get better, Tyree. You played well last year. You're a warrior. Um, Tough as nails to finish that game on a torn ACL. So Hamilton, we'll see what happens. We'll see if they can turn this season around. And otherwise, it might be a pretty long season for them across the board. Montreal Alouettes and the BC Lions. Man, does BC look for real? The team offensively looks for real. They had a little bit of a hiccup last week in week 4 against Toronto. That happens. Oh, sorry, the Edmonton Toronto game was 2 weeks ago. My apologies. Toronto again is looking like the cream of the crop. The defending CFL champs look like they're uh, very similar to the Vienna Vikings in the ELF. They really want this. They're playing every game like it is. Chad Kelly looks like he's born. He looks like he's been born to play in the CFL. He So the Argonauts aren't on this week. They have a bye week. But and the other stat that I wanted to say is any team coming off a bye week from the previous week so far has been undefeated. There are three. Let's see. There was 6 teams, so there was 3 teams coming off bye weeks from last week: Saskatchewan, Calgary, and Hamilton. Those 3 teams did not play last week. Those 3 teams are coming in off byes this week. Does the trend continue for the CFL so far this week? We'll see. I don't think it's going to. I don't think Hamilton's going to be able to do it, but I would love for it to happen with Calgary over Winnipeg, as a fellow Stampeder. With that being said, that's going to do it tonight here for the Summer Showcase. Shout out to Sam Shady Sports for once again providing this platform, for giving me an opportunity and chance to bring ELF and CFL news and predictions and previews, or whatever you want to call it, news to you guys here in America, for American fans. Trying to spread the word. American football is not dead. Even the NFL is over with as well. Hit him up at Sam Shady Sports, I believe, on Twitter as well. Follow that, and also hit the YouTube channel and hit the like button, the subscribe button over there as well. You can find me on Twitter, MW7777 is spelt out. You can find me on Instagram now as well. I got myself one of those to kind of put in there. It's MW_Washington. You can find me there. I have a Warclaw Panthers logo as well, and I just downloaded Threads. Apparently, it's Meta's version of Twitter, so you can follow me there too as well if you'd like. As well. Without all being said, I hope you enjoyed this week of the Summer Showcase. Next week, Kevin Doyle Jr. will be my guest. We'll discuss ELF action. We'll talk ELF. We'll talk a little bit about his career, and we'll maybe he'll give us a little insight as to what's going on with VFR and what they got planned or up their sleeve for the future here. Until then, have a good night, and I don't think I have anything else. Yeah, that's it. Have a good night.